Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Monday Night Roundup. We're here to give you all of the details on this last week's fixtures from the A&DBBL Season 5. Think of it as a cross between Match of the Day and Sky Sports F1's Ted's Notebook, just with no clips and probably less charisma. Yeah, before we dive in, just before we dive into the roundup, it'd be great if people got involved. So if you are on the stream you're watching and you've got any comments on the games as we go through, chuck something in the chat. I'm sure that I will. Still getting used to this Twitch thing, so I'll do my best to look at them. And also, if you are one of our coaches and you want to get involved in the future, and you maybe want to be here chatting rubbish with me about the fixtures, then get in touch, and we will do that as well. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it with the first game of the week that we had. The Riotous Rams versus, and I'm gonna say this right. I even wrote it down phonetically to say it right. Makuahutiel. And this game, on paper, was a very interesting start for Rich because in last season these two met in the group stage twice, and the Amazons had the better of the Chaos team on both occasions. A win and a draw against Rich in that group stage. So going into this, maybe thought it could have been a difficult start. Both teams redrafted, so both teams had a bunch of skills. But one of many games this was that happened on Thursday, where luck was with one coach and not the other. And that's really, I think, the takeaway from here. Not to take anything away from Rich. 3-0 victory, taking 5 points out of the first game. Great way to start, but you do have to feel for Chris. My notes say that there were 3 failed passes with pass rerolls that the Amazons tried to do in order to get back into this game. And when the luck's just not on your side, it's not on your side, is it? So it's really unfortunate for Chris. Rich, first half, getting a completion on turn 8. If you've been on the other end of Rich stalling to get a completion, you'll know a few things. 1, it's annoying. 2, you can't fault him for it. It's a valid tactic. You'll know 3 things. 3, Rich is good at it. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to block off the right players and put the ball in the right position and the ball carrier in the right position. He does it really well. You can't fault the man at all. Second half, then, as the luck just kept turning, so you can see there were no lasting injuries. So it's difficult to tell from tour play. Maybe there were some more knockouts, but Rich then sort of comfortably gets a 3-0 win there. Very little to report on tour play, so that's good for Chris because that clearly means not many people are missing that next game. But yeah. Rich is on an absolute storming quest here to get that three-peat, to get that third title in a row. So, it was a great start. It looked like the perfect way to start. And then Rich played again. And then it started to go badly. And I've kind of felt for him in a way because everyone wanted this to happen. Just because we like to have lots of different champions. It's great. It's great for the league if we have lots of different champions. So we don't. So lots of people don't want Rich to win a third in a row. We want a new champion. We want a new name on the board. And a 3-0 win in his first game. Maybe he looked like he was going to storm it. And then comes JD. Now, I've played JD twice last season. He was in my group, and JD, fantastic player, and I always feel that if JD loses a game but he kills a handful of people, JD will be happy. And I think JD probably came out of this exceptionally happy because not only is he taking a 2-0 win from it, so he hasn't conceded and he's got that bonus point, he's taken his 4 cash from it, he's taken 18 SPP from this game, he's knocked what could be his big competition in that group, Rich, down with a lot of players missing next game, and killed several of them. And it just started that way and then kept going. Turn 2, casualty, dead. Turn 4, casualty, miss next game. Turn 7, foul, dead. Turn 7, casualty, badly hurt. And that doesn't even cover the knockouts. Rich was at a point in the first half where he had so few. He thought he was going to be pitch cleared in the first half. That is how good JD's dice rolled. Um, and you know, agility busted a beastman lineman in the second half, and JD was not in a position where he needed to risk fouling, and he still goes for a foul and gets a player sent off, and then just keeps battering on, gets a touchdown. And actually, I think it's probably, to give Rich some credit here, the fact it was only 2-0 with that many knockouts and that much sort of a beating is, I mean, it's impressive actually, really, isn't it? You got to say. So, um, you know, he managed to, at the end there, he did get a couple of casualties himself. Missed next game on a Bloodseeker. Stat buster lineman, probably one to sack, I would say. JD takes 2-0 from there. JD may be frustrated he didn't take three, I don't know, but a 2-0 win, 5 points from Rich is a great start to JD's season, so he will be absolutely chuffed with that. We'll come back to Rich later because he played a third game this last week, but we will go to the first game that was played in the Reyes group, which was the Wordhole Wanderers versus the Winzig vs. Eisbären. Translation, Tiny Desert Polar Bears. Now, they are my team. It feels very odd talking about my team and my result. I don't think there's many ways you can do that without sounding a bit gloaty, and I really don't want to. So I'll do my best on this one. Simon is a great player. And Simon is a really nice person to play against. He's a really fun person to play against. He's actually my bogey team. I've lost to him more than I have beaten Simon. And we had two very similar lineups here, and sometimes the dice just don't go your way. And it seems to be that when Simon plays a competitive fixture, the dice don't go his way. And I genuinely feel for him. I honestly do. It's so unfortunate. Turn one, I'm receiving the ball. Simon gets a blitz kickoff event, and the first thing he does is move a Noblar, has to move a Snotling, has to dodge, fails the dodge roll, and the Snotling goes down. And that kind of just summed up how the game went. You know, 4-turn touchdown. He did very well at keeping me back and holding it to 4 turns because I like to score quicker than that with rats. He comes back, he takes out one of my gutter runners, levels it at 1-1. I've got 1 turn to reply, and I get a timeout, so I get another turn. And rats can score in that time. So again, more bad luck coming his way. You've then got in start the second half a blitz kickoff event, so I can immediately run gutter runners and all that down the pitch. Simon's turn 8 and he fails to pick up, and I score on turn 9. It just kind of kept happening, and it was unfortunate. And second touchdown for Simon was very well done. I did everything I could to sort of swarm rats into the right places, and I just couldn't. I managed to get a couple of casualties to take out a couple of Snotlings, but I can't stop that touchdown. 3-2, it could have gone either way, and then the luck again just kept falling. And rats can score quick, so 2-turn touchdown to score to make it 4-2. That one I think involved 3 or 4 dodges around prehensile tail in tackles, like 4 and 3 up dodges and rushing into the end zone. Then the weather turns. The weather turning didn't make a huge impact on the game, to be honest. I don't think it sort of impacted us too much. But by that point, it's 4-2, and I think it's very difficult to sort of it can be difficult to have to come back again. And I feel for Simon because he played so well in this game. Scored 2 touchdowns, and the result definitely looks looks worse on him than it was. He killed one of my linemen. He stat busted one of my linemen. Fouled a bunch of times. You know, it was a good game. It was a very entertaining game, and not as successful live stream as the next one. But we'll go on to that later. That was all our fixtures on Thursday, which was very much about luck. We'll go on to Friday's fixtures, where we didn't maybe have as many touchdowns and as many incidents as we did on that opening day. We had 5 games on Friday, which was really great. And the first one was midday, and it was Graveyard Brawlers versus Reptile Dysfunction. I'll say it now. It's my favourite team name and my favourite logo. I think it's the addition. If you look at the logo and the fact that the logo says "Let's talk about reptile dysfunction," if you put that in a doctor's waiting room, you would not think it was out of place. Genuinely love it. But let's get to the game. Tour play. There's not buckets of stuff for us to go on tour play, to be honest with you. Standard weather on this one. Some casualties very early on in the game. Looking at what tour play says, you think that there's probably an APOC used there and maybe some regen as to why they're not showing on there. So no one takes any sort of lasting effects home. Touchdown for the Necro team on turn 6. And the second half, I believe there was a bit of stalling in the second half from Dave to try and keep the score sort of at 1-1 rather than give out a touchdown and move forward to possibly concede. So a tight game. I think these two teams are probably ones that are in a good place to get out of their group. I think they're probably pretty I can see these two qualifying. So actually they might take a draw in this fixture in this particular instance. Nobody got any 0 conceding bonus points, nobody got 3 touchdown bonus points, nobody got 3 cash bonus points. They may not have got much themselves, but possibly their main rival to get out of this group, they have hampered as well. So, well done to both of them, taking away at least a point from that first game against difficult opponents there. Next up, four fixtures we had in the evening. The first one we're going to go to is the Angry Advarkians versus the Boneyard Blitzers. And this is a good tour play one. This is a tour play one that you're sat at home and you've got it open because you're, working and you've just got something in the background and you stick it up on your laptop and you scroll it, and then very quickly you can tell that these guys are enjoying it because turn 1, James decides to foul and immediately get sent off. And that's kind of how the game then went, really. Legendary lineman for the Boneyard Blitzers. Bunch of fouls after foul after foul. Injures Twansy Pat. And that's a thing to do. The ever vocal Twansy Pat, we'll call him. Taking him out of the game early on. Unfortunately, not enough to stop James from taking a lead, turn 7 in that first half, and getting some SPP for a completion, just with a regular lineman who needs the thrower. So 1-0 going into the first half. Tom continues to bash at that Renegade team and gets another foul and a casualty from it. And then it started to turn. Then the Rat Ogre gets involved. Casualty, badly hurt. Casualty, badly hurt. We've got a casualty from Billy Broadstrokes, niggling injury. Started to take out, started to take orcs out of the game. And we had one of our most now. If you were with us last season, you'll know that there was only one interception that happened throughout the entire season. And that interception was James. He was the only interception. So to start off with the Rat Ogre rolling a 6 on his interception and a 6 to actually catch the ball, starting, I guess, how he finished last year. Amazing effort. And I don't really know what you do when the Rat Ogre gets the ball other than march them down the pitch, and that's exactly what it looks like he's done. Cheeky foul at the end from the Blitzers, but a 2-0 win for James, which he'll be very proud of. He's got some tough opponents in that group, so he'll be happy to start that way. Uh, Tom, new to the league this year, not redrafted team, brand new team in, and you know, it looks like he's sort of committed to maybe a Fowley way of play, which I think is just going to be so much fun to watch. It's going to be a great team to watch going forward. So well done to both coaches there. Well done to James. 5 points from that game. And then we move on to what was our feature game on Friday, In a Day Animals versus the Greystone Gladiators. This was the big picture game that we had live streamed on Twitch. And going into the game, I actually thought this would I think the 2-0 result looks harsher on the Amazons and maybe reflects the bad luck that they had, especially when you look at it and you say that they got the 4 SPP points for MVP and that's it. And that's not really the Amazon team that we knew last season. So I think from my understanding, the dice was very much against them. First half, there was a fantastic pass from the Amazons into the player waiting in the end zone, fails the catch, ball goes into the crowd, chucks it to an elf who gets the touchdown and takes a 1-0 lead. Now that that can be when the crowd get involved, it can be difficult to take, and when you're already rolling quite bad dice, I reckon that was probably a bit of a hit. um, so yeah, I think this is tough on the Amazons, this one. Looking at tour play, injuries, not a huge amount. There was, I believe it was, again, it was like it was pre-turn one. Pre-turn one, I think it was possibly a blitz event, trip over with the lineman, missing the next game. And that was the only thing. That was the only thing from the only injury from this game. And then we had a completion, and then we had another completion, and then we got the touchdown, and then we had another completion. And I think Justin maybe got into more of a groove. I think even if you ask Justin, it wasn't an easy game, but he'll be very happy to take 2-0. I have full confidence. It's a difficult group. That it's we've got former champions in that group, and I think this could be third place could come from this group because I think it could be very tight between the teams there. So well done to both coaches. Unlucky Amazons. Well done for the Elves there. And then we'll move on to this game. The Ipswich Imperials versus the Evolutionaries. So we've got Imperial Nobility here versus Elven Union. And this is a difficult one to follow on tour play because I guess sometimes a lot happens in your game, but there's just nothing to report. And that's kind of what tour play looked like. This was a game that it was one of the longer games we had on Friday. And in the first half, you had a completion on turn 5, you had a casualty on turn 6, and then you had a completion and a touchdown. And because the game was going on quite long, these things weren't coming very quickly, so it was very difficult to gauge, not being in the shop, how it was going. It looked like it was quite tight. Have to say well done to Phil on this one. It's his first ever league. It's a brand new team. He's not played a huge number of games. He's got one tournament under his belt, and that's it. And I'm sure he'll be very pleased to get a completion and touchdown in that first game. Second half, it was a bit more on the Imperial side. The Elves are already down one player, and then thanks to the Ogre, niggling injury, that's another player out. Bodyguard, casualty, kills a blitzer, which is always a difficult thing to have a key positional player die on game one. That's always a difficult one to swallow, to be honest with you. So, yeah, tricky that one, but manages to level the game at 1-1. The Evolutionaries get a casualty and inflict a niggling injury back, and the game ends there. It was certainly one of the longer games that happened on that day, and I think sometimes you can maybe get in your head a bit when you are playing, and sort of games can take a bit longer, and the longer they go on, especially if it starts to get late, that can sort of put a bit of extra pressure on anyway. But both, relatively newer players. Kevin with a bit more experience than Phil here. A 1-1 from the opening game. It's not a bad result. There's a bit of repair jobs to be done on the Elf side, but actually I think it's not too bad. Next game, Fog Force versus the Iceborne Raiders. This was the other game in the same group as the Elves and the Amazons that we streamed. Andy, brand new to Blood Bowl, absolutely brand new, chucked himself in at the deep end with Black Orcs in a league scenario. John, not brand new to Blood Bowl, former champion, knows what he's doing. And a 2-1 result, I think John will be happy to take a win from it, and Andy will be... I think Andy should be pleased with his result here. I honestly think he should. I think he's taken 4 casualties here, and actually, this is another one that if you look on tour play at the way the game went, and if your only point of reference is tour play, then it looks like Andy has really held his own. John gets an early touchdown with an Allferner. John likes scoring with his strong players. He likes scoring with the strength 4s. I hate it, but John loves it, and he does it well. The Fog Force managed to get some casualties in. The Black Hawks get a casualty early on. The turn marker isn't entirely accurate here. I know that both players said that they weren't entirely. It got a bit muddled up at certain points. But a touchdown to level up again in your first ever game and against a coach as experienced as John is a great thing for Andy to get that touchdown. Then we get another casualty, badly hurt there. John gets a casualty back. Andy gets a casualty back. And at this point, Andy has got 3 casualties, drawing 1-1. And I'm staring at this screen thinking that he could get 2 points from this game. And that would have been fantastic. Fouls start coming John's way. Fouls twice, gets a casualty from... fouls twice. Black Hawks respond with a casualty to make a lineman miss the next game. Chuck a foul in there again to miss it. It just kept happening, this one. And turn 16 touchdown for John. I don't know how much stalling was involved there. It looks like possibly there could have been a bit of stalling there. I think Andy can be very pleased with that as his first game. He's taking a point away from it. John's only taking 3. It's keeping that group very tight. So yeah, really well done to both players. Well done to John, and another extra well done to John, who won a tournament that we were at yesterday. So congratulations to him with this Norse team. So he's definitely getting his practice in. But yeah, well done to Andy. That's a really solid performance for your first league game. So yeah, keep going like that, and I'm sure you'll get some points. Next up, Scale Marys versus the Ipswich Imperials. So Kevin gets another game in over this period. One of our coaches who decided to try and squeeze 2 in and managed to. And this one looks like, again, maybe not the most eventful game, but crucially taking 3 points for the win, 1 bonus point for the not conceding, and kind of putting an early flag up there at the top of this group, which is really good way to start. I think this is another game where the dice have not gone the way of a coach. I asked the coach at the Scale Marys for a sort of brief summary, and it does sound like 14 turns. Turn 14 was the first turn that was naturally ended without a turnover. That is madness. I mean, how this Lizard coach has remained calm to that point, I do not know, because that is beyond frustrating. And when looking at here, I think when you miss out on a few points, when you maybe just miss out on a touchdown, get lots of turnovers, get 2 cash instead of 3, so you miss out on the bonus point, it can be very frustrating. But a key thing for this game, and it's something that I think should really take away, is in game 2 to stat bust the big guy of your opponent. That could be something that really shakes this group up. It really could. Now, an ogre with strength 9 rather than strength 10, armor 9 rather than armor 10 even, probably not as bad as it could have been, but it's a hell of a statement, and that's a difficult decision. I think if it were me, I'd probably keep that ogre for a little bit, because when you stat bust the big guy, they are expensive to replace. Kevin did well, got a touchdown, looks like early in the first half, and managed to hold out in the second. So well done there to both coaches, and well done to Kevin. It's a cracking start. I think I'm a big fan of the Lizards. I've played Lizards twice, and I'm really hoping that Dave can do some more there and get some more results. Next up, I'm aware of the time, and I've got a cut off for this. I need to stop at some point. Tetanus Hotspews versus delightful Dirty Golden Browns. We're just going to call them Nurgle and Skaven because they're both called Scott. It looks like, based on the report that I got through here, what Nurgle wanted to do in this game was to keep the other team back as much as possible. And in starting off in pouring rain, that's not fun. That's gonna put your stress up immediately. Um, the Nurgle immediately going in for a foul and getting a badly hurt, going for a foul and getting sent off. Clearly fouls. We know that this Nurgle coach likes to foul. We know that they like snotlings and goblins and all of that stuff. We all know it. So it's not a surprise at all. So to hold the rats back, using the tentacles on that big guy to keep them from dodging out and just keeping them back. It looks like maybe turn 7, turn 8 in the first half. It looks like those Skaven were so close to taking a lead there. And a pesticle blitz is what sort of kept them back. Second half then looks like maybe a bit more of a grind. Turn 14 touchdown though to take a 1-0 lead, and Rats can score in 2. So I assume there was no chance of stalling there because Rats can get that done. But a foul and a sent off from the thrower. Brave to foul from your thrower. I'd want him on the pitch. But a 1-0 win for the Nurgle. Really good result there. I want the Rats to do well because I'm Rats too. So hard luck on the Rats. It looks like a hard fought game there. We're back with Rich for our penultimate game. Riotous Rams versus Kittens for Tea. Coach for Kittens for Tea's record last season was not one of the best, but I know he had a great time. A 3-0 win for Rich here. I hope this is harsh when we look at it. I hope it is. I wonder whether it is. Rich had to take a bunch of linemen. Rich wanted a good result here. He wanted to kind of bring things back after that Corn defeat. Bomber, Dribble Snot, and Acorn, who I love, for the Goblin team. And the Goblins, it looks like Rich was in control here to a degree. Casualty, badly hurt. A foul, unfortunately, not a lot came from that by the looks of it. An early touchdown for Rich. Bomber then immediately sent off, which is always a bit painful. And a casualty, a badly hurt lineman. So the casualties started coming. Casualty again for Rich. More fouls for the Goblins. It's two teams doing what you thought they would do. You've got a team, the Goblins are fouling. The Chaos team are smashing and getting casualties. And that, just look, foul, casualty, foul. With a few touchdowns thrown in there to secure a 2-turn touchdown at the end by the looks of it. Which a 2-turn touchdown with Chaos is a thing. So I don't know whether the timer is right on there, but 2-turn touchdown with the Chaos, very well done. Unlucky for Nick. It looks like bested in that game, but Nick's a great player. He's in it for the fouls and for the shenanigans. So we'll see how he gets on in his next fixtures. And lastly, and I'm really sorry to have to rush this one, but I probably am going to have to rush this one. We've got Goblins. Scott's Goblins versus Tom's Graveyard Brawlers. And we were following this one at the tournament on Sunday, and we were watching this one quite keen because you look early on at how things were going, and you've got it was early on it was so dramatic, and then it just seemed to go away from the Goblins, possibly because of the amount of players sent off. 2 bribes, Fungus the Loon was taken. Turn 1, foul, sent off. Great. Fungus the Loon gets a casualty. Stat busting a werewolf in that group is a hell of a shout. That is a painful thing to have stat busted that werewolf, and they are not cheap players to replace. So it'll be interesting to see what the Brawlers do on that one. The Train Troll scores on turn 5, and then Fungus, the Fanatic, and the Loony all sent off on turn 5 at the end of that play. And as far as I'm told, all of the bribes failed. All of the bribes were runs. And then at that point, the touchdown started to come. Casualty, Goblin out, touchdown. Casualty, Goblin out, touchdown. Casualty, Goblin out, foul, touchdown. And then the game's over. I mean, it just kept coming, that one. It was a great one to kind of keep an eye on from afar. And I think whether should the Goblins have stalled a bit more in the first half? Possibly they should have stalled a bit longer to try and kind of hold on to those players, those secret weapons. But when the bribes don't work your way, the bribes don't work your way. You know, one on every bribe, that sucks. That sucks. But well done to Scott. You know, I think he had a great game either way. Well done to Tom. Unfortunate about the werewolf, but a good number of points there. So really well done. And that's the last game. So that's all we're going to cover. I will fly through the table and then I will stop because I only wanted to do this half an hour and I'm already over that. So Rich is top of his group, but Key, he's played 3 games to JD's 1, and there's only 6 points in it. JD can take first place there, I think. That was a really key victory. In Carve, that's a very tight group. John and Justin at the top there, and I think that's going to stay tight for the remainder. As we go down, the Nurgle comfortably sitting top of their group so far. Kevin with his 2 games, 6 points at the top of there. That's going to be daunting for everyone below him, but there's only 1 game in it, so there's more to do there. And Harrison's yet to play, and we know he is very good. In Reyes, I'm top of that. I'm going to move on because I don't like it. Robert hasn't played yet, and I'm scared of him. Heldman, Ardvakian's comfortably in the lead there. Bleakshaw Ravens and Numpty's yet to play, and they are both going to make that difficult for James. So James is going to enjoy that top spot while he can. And finally, Graveyard Brawlers with their couple of games played, comfortably sitting top of there. Again, I think it's between Tom and David there in that group, but it's very early days, and those dwarves and those goblins are going to have something to say about that. And that's the roundup. That is everything. That is all I'm going over today. I've already run over what I wanted to. Thank you anyone who's watched. Thank you anyone who watches afterwards. Really appreciate it. And as I said, if you want to join me rambling about some games at 6 o'clock on a Monday, please do feel free to shout, get in touch, and we can go through the fixtures so it's not just me rambling. But thanks for joining us. We'll hopefully be announcing soon what games will be streamed this week, and then we will see you all on Monday for another roundup.